What's an open secret that doesn't have a documentary about it yet? Story 1. The province of New Brunswick, Canada is basically the play toy of a small handful of wealthy families. Irving, McCain, Oland. The government is just there for show. Wow, I didn't expect my home province to be the top comment on this. I live in SJ where every other industrial building has Irving in bold blue letters across the front. I wish a major politician would openly defy them. But odds are the only way to actually move up the ranks is to be Irving's slave. Also, the Oland family, probably along with the others, basically owned the police. During the Oland murder, the police essentially did everything they could to ensure as much evidence from the scene was as inadmissible to court as possible. Either that or they're the most incompetent detectives on the face of the earth. If you said any of this to anyone outside New Brunswick, they'd probably think you were a crazy conspirator. But everything about these families controlling everything in New Brunswick, from the politicians to the newspapers to the economy, is all true. Story 2. Steroid use in Hollywood. Everyone knows it's happening, but I don't think the extent is widely known. When a male actor puts on a lot of muscle for a role, they have most likely used steroids. Even if they have just put on a little muscle, they probably still use steroids, because you can't gain fast enough to get in shape for the start of filming. And because it is technically illegal, no one will ever admit it. What makes it worse is these people and their trainers will write articles for Men's Health where they go through their workouts, ignoring the fact that they took growth hormone for a year. There have been a few good documentaries about doping in sports, but I think we need one about Hollywood. Story 3. The way old folks are treated in care homes. There is a lot that could be exposed about elder and end-of-life issues, making the enormous monthly cost of a nursing home, more than $10K for a shared room, or assisted living, more than $6,000, known and what those places are really like to live in. The estate planning industry that popped up in the US to help people hide assets from the government so that Medicaid will pay, but not take the house. The push to integrate mentally ill seniors with the rest of the population, and the impact that has on the other residents. Seniors avoiding marriage to keep old pensions, etc. The entire hospice industry, and how they aren't going to be there to help at all unless there is an emergency. I could go on. Story 4. The Mormon church is sitting on hundreds of billions of dollars in stock and real estate. They do almost no charity work directly from those funds. The majority of the humanitarian funds the church claims are from an equivalent dollar value of labor from their members and another entirely separate charity arm, which does not involve church contributions. It's estimated the church is valued at $250 billion. They use the money to buy malls, warehouses, hotels, and more recently, apartment or condo complexes. I forget off the top of my head which. I think they own a lot of Florida. And the funny thing is, they've convinced their members that they're poor and they no longer pay for cleaners for their church buildings. The congregation cleans the buildings for free. Story 5. There's an industry that basically takes guardianship of elderly people by getting them declared incompetent without their knowledge. They move them into nursing homes, sell off their homes and assets, and take over their money. It's like the title theft scam, but with people being taken over rather than just real estate. It's brutal and frightening. This is my greatest fear. Medical bureaucracy is terrifying. I don't have kids to advocate for me either. Years ago, I was stripped of all my rights and sent to the hospital after just going to a therapist. I moved and just wanted to see a therapist closer to my new apartment. I wasn't having the best time, but I was nowhere near taking my life. This lady just decided I was a danger to myself because I was honest that I did try when I was a child, over 20 years ago, as a direct result of a brutal traumatic event. I was there for 2 days, and if I didn't have a supportive family or that time off of work already, I shudder to think of the long-term implications. It cost me over 5K, and I would have been fired if I just didn't call or show for 2 days. It truly would have ruined my life if I didn't have a family with access to that kind of money. It still took me years to be able to pay them back. One person making one call can ruin your life. I still have nightmares. Story 6. How some of the top fashion magazines send young models over to meet wealthy donors in hotel rooms who will help them get the modeling contract they were after. Many years ago, I was 20, living and working modeling OS, and was sent to a hotel to meet a director of a huge TVC campaign I had just booked. that was earning me $200,000. It was being shot in some gorgeous islands on boats, etc. It was my first really big job. I was very excited. The director sat in a booth of this boutique hotel and asked for my modeling portfolio and flipped through each page, telling me why I was right for the job. By halfway through the folio, he started explaining what each photo made him want to do to me. I knew I had 10 days on location with this 60-year-old creep. I was trapped, though. I managed to let on that I was willing to leave the darker bar area where we were sitting to have a more private conversation about the job. As soon as I could see the foyer, I went to make a run for it. He grabbed my arm with his, "No, no, no, you don't," pushed me into a corner. I kicked him as hard as I could in the family jewels and made a run for it. Story 7, Lariam or Mefloquine. There's a mini YouTube documentary about it, but it's not nearly big enough or been seen by enough people for me to count that. If you don't know, Lariam is an anti-malaria med that was prescribed to many people in the late 80s and 90s and prescribed by first world militaries up until the 2010s. I personally have a family who is impacted and still suffers from the effects of Lariam, but the people I know at least didn't have their brains and lives completely destroyed by it like so many others have. It's been linked to countless homicides, including the Kandahar massacre, causing paranoia, hallucinations, and night terrors that literally take your worst fears and bring them to life. Because the mefloquine toxicity acts on the limbic system, where your amygdala, aka the fear center, is. Many people have passed over their dreams alone. Every single detainee at GTMO was dosed for no reason, with the 1250 milligrams dose that would be prescribed to cure someone who had malaria, not even the 250 milligrams prophylactic dose. This was done without testing the detainees for malaria and without reason to believe they had it. People from the same regions as the prisoners who were at GTMO as employees were not subjected to it, and it is widely believed to have been done specifically to bring about the debilitating side effects as psychological waterboarding. Story 8, Project 2025. People need to know that the Project 2025 leader is Paul Dons, former Chief of Staff at the Office of Personnel Management, OPM, during the Trump administration, and now Director of the 2025 Presidential Transition Project. OPM provides HR services for almost every federal agency. One of the core parts of Project 2025 is to identify Democrats working in federal agencies and do mass purges of them, then replace them all with Trump Republican partisan loyalists. Literally, they have a list of over 10,000 people as replacements. This is crap you only thought you'd see in other lesser-run countries. Once it's done, it will be irreparable. Institutional knowledge will be lost. There will be no continuity. Every agency and program will become partisan. And every administration afterwards will have to find who belongs to the opposite party and mass purge them to get anything done. It's sickening. The head of the Heritage Foundation, which is behind Project 2025, and writes policy guidelines for incoming Republican administrations, just promised a second American Revolution. Story 9, the way doctors are made in the U.S. is basically a form of indentured servitude if you aren't from a rich family. You have to obey a system that is using you for massive profits. And if you wipe out or get dismissed at any point, you have 250 to 500 key in debt to punish you, make you reconsider your decision to leave. Some experiences of residency include low pay, 6-day work weeks, forced night shifts, and having little to no say about your schedule. The last one isn't exactly limited to residency, though. Story 10. The sheer horrific scale of common abuses among the various UK police forces. From time to time, a news story hits the headlines, and everyone shakes their heads, tuts about the bad eggs, and goes on as normal. I started looking for work in a commercial firm after I handled the fourth unlawful arrest/assault/false imprisonment claim against the same officer within a year, and found that there was no disciplinary action to be disclosed, not even a written warning. Each time the officer had made a statement that we clearly couldn't use if the claim went to trial. That is, he was making crap up that was unequivocally contradicted by body-worn or third-party video, but which the professional standards investigators decided was good enough to take no action. In some cases, they just didn't bother to preserve the officer's own BWV. Then, a few years later, I worked on the other side, in claims against the police, and time again saw the same behavior going unchallenged. A half dozen officers would turn up to a job, watch one of their colleagues assault someone and turn a blind eye, not one of them saying a word against their colleague. Meanwhile, the police and IOPC will make a big deal out of the handful they bother to investigate meaningfully, whilst police forces spend millions of pounds trying to get out of their obligation to hold a disciplinary hearing when directed to by a higher authority. The whole police complaint system is not fit for purpose and leaves the banality of evil entirely unchallenged. Story 11. I live in a town in NJ that has a company called Sibagagi. They were the town's largest employer, so most people kept quiet about what they were doing, which was dumping chemicals into the Toms River and Atlantic Ocean and burying 47,000 drums of toxic waste in the ground. This created a plume of polluted water that spread beyond the company site and into our neighborhoods. We have a high cancer and autism rate, which hasn't definitively been connected to the chemical disposal. There's been small docs about it, and Danny DeVito was interested in doing a movie about it, but then COVID hit. I feel like this could be a good doc. Story 12. I wish Frontline or somebody would do an in-depth historical reveal of Social Security revenue and expenditures. There was talk 30 years ago about SS funds being diverted to the overall budget and replaced with IOUs. Al Gore talked about a lockbox on SS funds. People laughed. Who's laughing now? Were the funds diverted? Was the withholding formula that far off with longer living recipients? Or were diverted monies ever repaid? Or did the right-wing politicians in DC intentionally sabotage the program to prove socialism doesn't work? Story 13. Sasha Lord, the Night Tsar of Manchester, and guy who runs the Warehouse Project, Parklife, and other huge corporate clubbing operations in the UK. Search his name on here and Twitter, and you'll see what the people of Manchester think about him. He's inextricably linked to Andy Burnham, who will very likely be the next UK Prime Minister. And that's when all this horribleness will explode onto the front pages. In brief, he's responsible for completely destroying Manchester's independent clubbing scene in the mid-00s. And from then on, he's literally in it to ensure his business is ring-fenced, and he can carry on making huge profits. He doesn't like clubbing or music, all this is well reported. He brags about treating young new DJs like dirt on his shoe. For example, see his widely published comments about booking a young Calvin Harris. He refused to pay his travel costs and made him play his venue before the doors had opened to the public. Sasha laughs about this, acting like it's a big joke rather than the acts of someone unspeakably callous and driven by greed and cruelty. It won't be just Calvin he's shafted, it'll be 1,000 up-and-coming DJs who he's done over and laughed about afterwards. Story 14, I wouldn't say it is an open secret yet, but the corruption in Wall Street and how they have actively dissolved companies while profiting the whole way. I'm no expert in it, but the gist of it is that hedge funds will actively bet on a company going down, sort of shorting. And when they go bankrupt, they don't have to pay any taxes on those profits. That can be a reasonable action to take if you see a company you think is not worth their dollars, or you think they may be mismanaged. But what they seem to do is target specific companies and instill cronies into the C-suite who actively mismanage the company, so it is destined to fail. The execs who were put in don't care because they get bonuses, golden parachutes, and the opportunity to move into another company to do it all again. Some other companies are even in bed with Wall Street. Jeff Bezos was a hedge fund manager before Amazon fame, and it is suspected that through previous connections, they've been able to muscle out the competition. Toys R Us, bankrupt, had previously had a 10 years partnership with Amazon, which went sour. But the then 70-years-old company has now gone bankrupt. Blockbuster, bankrupt, was plagued by poor leadership that failed to make smart moves. The CEO, John Antioco, is now a chairman for the board of directors for Bricks Holdings, LLC. Blockbuster stock still exists and has had unusual movements related to price spikes. And there are some theories about it relating to hidden, illegal market mechanics being used. Story 15. This one's kind of personal for me. Those wilderness therapy camps spread throughout the United States. It's somewhat known how bad they are, but words cannot do it justice. After experiencing it firsthand, I just wish it was more well known. Maybe then more kids wouldn't end up traumatized horribly from being sent. They are known for quite literally hiring kidnappers To haul kids without their consent to a place they had no idea they were even going to. It completely uproots your life and everything you had, and it's horrible. R/troubled teens, if you want to learn more about it. Story 16, elementary school teacher here. The way that my coworkers and administrators treat students sometimes is horrifying, and this is the same in different cities. Elementary school students are shamed for using the bathroom during class time and made to focus 100% of the time, all while educators say that they are trying to reach every child. They're told they can handle something when the teacher has no idea if they can handle it or not. Also, teachers can be fired for any reason during the 2 years before they get tenure, and then almost nothing can get them fired. The U.S. public school system is a bit backward, to say the least. And the garbage curriculum that districts purchase because some company gave them a pitch. Story 17. How much of lab data, real test results that go on food packaging, tests for contamination, etc., is falsified or adjusted for clients? It is an open secret that many companies run their own labs that test for contamination in food and hire inexperienced workers that will literally just make up test results so samples will pass. Tests would also be poorly run to make results pass, or there would be no quality control to make sure the results are accurate. I don't know how many times I have been asked to fudge the numbers or watch someone openly do it to make the customer happy. There is more lead and a whole lot of other things in your food, your water, and your drugs than is always reported to the FDA, etc. I don't know how open my secret is, but there are for sure no documentaries talking about it, and especially none saying how common it is. Story 18. The corruption and obsolescence of car dealerships. Manufacturers make the cars, sell them to dealerships for a mystery amount, where they are sold at tidy profit to customers. Not only with no added value, but potentially diminished value, but it's more than just that. The entire property is a scam. Salespeople are generally paid on commission, but those commissions are based on completely shifting and shadowy figures that can and do change at any time. There are upcharges not just to MSRP, but to rate as well, in addition to tacked on fees and unwanted upgrades to vehicles like pinstriping and coatings. The result is almost always salespeople abusing the trust of customers and acting on their own behalf for payment rather than the best interest of the customer, which completely negates the reason a customer would need a dealership in the first place. Lastly, these massive concrete blemishes are massive wastes of space, considering you could fit the entire experience in less than 1/10 the space by removing all the inventory. Have a small office in a strip mall with maybe a dozen vehicles outside to show different features, options, and colors. Have employees paid hourly in there to assist with transmission of knowledge, not to push sales. Mandate that vehicles must be sold at the same price across the country, just like if you are shopping on Amazon. And remove the facade of rebates that muddle pricing. Go in, test drive, build online, order, and get your car in 4 to 8 weeks. Story 19. In the military, there is a career field known as enlisted aid. These military members are hired and work for a specific general officer. Their duties focus almost exclusively on serving the specific general officer and her spouse. This includes grocery shopping, meal preparation or serving, entertaining guests, laundry, and any other domestic task the general needs. If the general likes their enlisted aide, they can choose to retain him or her throughout the entirety of their career and moves. I'm fairly certain if the general public knew there were military men and women in uniform laundering and ironing some general's clothes because she didn't want to do it themselves, there would be a story there. Story 20, nurse practitioners in general have variable quality, very short education that doesn't prepare them for unsupervised practice. They have lobbied for unsupervised practice. And as hospitals and clinics replace doctors with NPs, healthcare is becoming more of a Wild West. NP schools don't even give clinical rotations to the students. They often have to find rotations for themselves. And then students may just end up shadowing instead of learning by doing. The outcomes data is limited, but so far, it's not looking good as NPs are more likely to order unnecessary specialist referrals, lab tests, and imaging. This drives up the cost of healthcare for patients while driving but revenue for hospital systems. In physician forums, there are endless discussions of bad care from NPs that doctors end up managing. Story 21, How Behavioral Intervention Plans in American School Settings Are Getting Abused by Parents of Students. Any student can get one if they are classified as special ed. And you can be classified as special ed for anything. When in reality, these plans were supposed to be for children with moderate to severe autism or delays, not every kid who is being bad in school. So essentially, kids who act out in school get a get out of jail free card for being bad. And the admin can't do anything about it because the kid is supposedly special ed because mom or dad ran to the pediatrician and got a diagnosis of ADHD, etc. Instead of coming to terms with the fact they are crappy parents who do not discipline their kid and somehow expect school staff to perform a miracle with their wildly misbehaving child. Story 22. There is an organization operating right here in this country, at this very moment in the United States of America, that is as American as apple pie, and it is guilty of some of the most abhorrent, widespread, blatantly malicious, and downright inhumane, dehumanizing treatment of its employees you could ever imagine. The sheer scale of the abuse people have been made to suffer, and at the hands of a single company, for decades, marching to the steady melody of nothing more than whispers, the level of corruption taking place within the walls of a company that so proudly brandishes the iconic logo held so very dear to the people of this great nation, a logo that holds a place perched at the very tip top where it's remained year in and year out, not just in the minds of the people of this country, but in the entire known world. The logo I speak of, and who wears it, appropriately colored in red, white, and blue, bearing an eagle. The eagle, in case anyone's forgotten, is said to stand for freedom from coast to coast, around the world. Where the eagle flies, freedom comes with it. The company it represents is none other than the United States Postal Service, the second largest employer in the United States of America. The Postal Service, from the management to the very unions themselves, all engaged in various degrees of corruption and abuse, one form or another, right up to their eyeballs everywhere you look, any which way, as far as your eyes can see. It's neither a secret nor has it ever been, which is far more than I can say for those that dare to do anything about it. Story 23, just how many academic research papers nowadays are almost entirely generated by AI like ChatGPT? I'm currently taking college classes, and it's an open secret that most research is written by ChatGPT from a basic outline. Around 80% of people I've talked to have admitted that they're just pasting outlines into ChatGPT, pasting in their own facts, figures, fixing some of the stuff that's just blatantly wrong, and then sending it to their professors and whatever journals they can find to get published. It's bad, man. I've read some of these papers, and you can absolutely tell when something is written by a well-versed research team versus something that was done with ChatGPT.